All right, so today we are talking about the 5 things to avoid when buying used cars on Craigslist. Something you and I are intimately familiar with.
I'm very excited for this topic. Yes.
So we've probably, I don't know, maybe 30 cars bought and sold on Craigslist over the last maybe 15 years or something like that.
I don't know, because typically afterwards I have to drink a lot to forget the whole thing happened. Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a miserable experience. We've had a lot of good experiences on Craigslist. So
that's true.
Generally, you don't have dealer markups, right? So that's one of the great things about the used market. You can get 20-30% off of list price or current market value on cars a lot of times. You have much more negotiating power, I'd say, on Craigslist versus something like a more formal car buying app or,
Some car salesman that really doesn't care if you buy or the next guy buys it. He's at work, so.
Yep. And you get to be connected directly with the car owner. So, generally it's a good place to find a lot of vehicles. I highly recommend the used market in general over buying new. But it is a very high risk. I guess not high risk. It's a higher risk market for sure. There's no guarantees. It's not something that's regulated, right? And so there's a few things, at least 5 things we feel are things that you should avoid that'll help make a better car buying experience for you. Number 1, avoid long-winded and overwritten descriptions. So I'm talking about the 2,500 word listing where you got a story about how, it's they've been driving it for a long time and, it's sat for a while and, the mechanic says it just needs this and this and that and you just haven't had time to do it or the money, but it's a really good car and I upgraded the stereo and you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. And I should, be clear here. We're not talking about the guy that has a really clear, clean, bullet point list of all things that have been done to upgrade the vehicle or a really nice description of the service history. We're talking about the guy with the story. And, I think this goes for everything. When someone's lying, they like to go into way too much detail or way too long of a story, at least in my experience. So the one that goes and says something like, it overheated one time, but I think that was just because I was driving in the winter and then so and so happened. I went to the wedding. I didn't think about it. Nothing happened. That's all BS. The guy that starts to threaten you, it'd be like, if no one buys it for this price, I'm going to do it myself and up the price.
I don't have to sell and I'm not desperate for the money. Yeah. So in general, I think that's a sign of someone who is overcompensating for value of problems that they know exist, right? They're trying to talk their way out of things that they subconsciously know they need to work around or are a barrier for them getting the price that they want.
I should also say there's one phrase that I look at for every email or posting or anything that comes my way. If I see this one phrase, they're automatically out.
What's that?
God bless. Anyone that says God bless at the end of an email is trying to screw you over, all right? That's universally, man, I found it to be honest, all right?
So I know that sounds bad too. We're not anti-religion.
No, we're anti-people using religion as a way to get your defenses down in order to scam you.
But the reality is when people do say God bless at the end of their ad, and in our experience, they're people that do not say God bless in person.
Yes. All right, so avoid the listings with the too good to be true pricing. Now, I'm not saying, hey, man, I'm looking for, a $1,500 car and I found one for $1,100. Oh, man, that's too good to be true. I'm talking about the $30,000 vehicle that's on there for $2,000.56, all right? That one that has a little Gmail email written in the picture and it says something stupid in the description. Do not think that you're getting a good deal and say, oh my God, my friends will be so impressed I got this great deal. No, just don't. I mean, now there are private party sales where people want to meet with you at the credit union. Perhaps they have a balance to pay off or whatever, and they want to go through that extra level. And that's where you're getting that benefit. You got to go through the hassle of dealing with both banks, paying off their loan, whatever else. honestly, it's not something I've ever really been interested in, just based off of what's my time worth and what's the headache and the hassle. And I've had, of course, like we both have, bad experiences that any complexity is right out of the door. But, I will say that, there is a certain threshold. There's a value for needing to do some work. There's some value for some workarounds. That's why you're buying from a private party. That's why there's that, you don't have that seamless dealership transition. But, when something is $2,000, it should be 10 times that amount. It's not a great deal. It's a scam.
Yeah, you've not found the Black Friday deal on Craigslist, I'm sorry to say. Number 3, do not buy from someone who is not the owner. I've had a lot of experience with this one myself. So, the main reason I say this is because I don't have a better word for it other than recently band-aided cars, right? So someone's bought one from an auction, someone's bought one from salvage title, someone's bought one that's been in someone's backyard for, 5 years. You don't really know. And the truth of the matter is that it's not that hard to put a little bit of work into a car that looks really bad and has a lot of issues and make it look and sound and feel okay for a very short amount of time. So if someone has no idea who owned it in the past, they can't tell you anything about the ownership history, I'd call that a red flag. It could even be, and this has happened to me once before, where I was shopping for a 350Z years back, and I went to a used car dealership at the time and was looking at one, and then a few days later on Craigslist, private party, I saw a similar 350Z. Turns out I went to go meet the guy. The used car dealer had taken that car and met me at a private location to make it look like it was a private party sale.
Yeah. Where I go with this point is really, even if the title signed off, I know people that buy cars, flip them, the original, the true legal owner signs off the title, and then you just basically find someone to buy for a different price, and you give them the title and they go and register it. Yeah, that should work, but there's so much risk involved with all that. I could sign whatever name I feel like on a title and say, yep, the owner signed off. If I just happen to have, maybe you left a car with me or something and just had the title or something with it, I say, I don't want this in my garage anymore. I sign off on it, say, yep, here you go. So my rule is, it's a lot like checks. Show me your ID that matches the address and the name on the title as the legal owner. Mm-hmm. Sign off on it right there. And then we're good. Then there's no risk, there's no concern, and anyone that's somewhat respectable will have no issue with that.
And there is, I will say too, there's some exceptions, right? Like occasionally you'll have someone actually is selling grandma's car that just drove it to church every other Sunday and has awesome maintenance. There is someone who's selling their car for their wife, and although I think it's weird that someone says that because it's unnecessary. That is something that does happen. So I'd say too that if you can verify that there's like a family relation or something like that. I
just say, okay, well, bring your wife or bring your grandma or whatever. I just want to see the ID, and then we're good. Just check it off. Just from my risk, threshold. Yeah, I could just say, yeah, screw it, whatever. I'm gonna go register the car and then figure it out. But do you really want the hassle of finding out this was sold under false pretense? They didn't really have the authority to sell. I've had situations where they have a duplicate title. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the title, there's a family member that bought the vehicle for this story, but they bought a vehicle. It had a clean, Washington title. Turns out that was a supplement, a secondary title. I don't remember the exact words. A secondary title, and the first title has a lien on it that the second title didn't show. So we went to register the vehicle. The DMV is like, there's a lien on this vehicle. You gotta go talk to the lien holder in order to get that released, in order to transfer ownership. So there are risks involved, and that's why it's also nice just to compare addresses, especially if you're meeting someone somewhere. A lot of people don't like to meet at their house or whatever, just so that you have some kind of legal recourse. You don't have a stolen property in your possession, which I've also had in a completely separate issue. So
that's a good point too about, a lot of people aren't comfortable meeting at their house, which is fine. But, I do think it's a bit of a pro tip though, that, if someone is willing to give you their address, meet at their address, somehow you get their address, right? Like it does say something about, them being trustworthy. And also, I actually love meeting people at their houses when I go and look at cars from Craigslist too, because you get to see a little bit about like what the car situation is, right? Mm-hmm. Is it in the garage, right? Are they pulling it out of the garage? Is it in the driveway? Or is it a car that's parked around the corner 2 blocks down, right? And clearly not something that's been well taken care of or a priority for them.
Yeah, and I mean, you remember when I bought my Dakota, and I knew this going into it that it wasn't like a very great car. It had 2 totals in its history. It had a lot of issues on the title. Issues, I mean, like it's been wrecked a few times. It wasn't a clean vehicle, but I knew that coming into it. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a cheap vehicle that had 4-wheel drive. But you get to the place, and the guy's got like 8 cars, and they're all half torn apart. And you can tell he's a real half-assed mechanic. He's not really finishing projects that he starts. He doesn't have a clean workspace. So that kind of tells you, all right. So this isn't just some guy that does, pretty good maintenance on a vehicle that's beat up. No, it's going to be shoddy work, And sure enough, that's what it was the whole life of the truck. But I knew that the price was right for me, and so it worked out.
Yeah.
So
it ended up being a pretty good truck.
Yeah, it was a good truck, actually. Okay, number 4. So number 4, avoid ads with poor language and grammar. And, this wouldn't be one of our little videos if it wasn't something that we debated on. And so I have to kind of throw up a within reason, okay? So, if you're buying poor language and grammar, if it's clearly a second language, if you got, Spanish or Ukrainian or Russian or whatever else, and you realize that it's just simply trouble writing in the language, that's not a big deal to me. That's just kind of part of the thing. Perhaps
I guess a better word might be lazy postings or lazy language in the description, right? Where they've not taken the time to spell things correctly, use punctuation, any type of grammar. And I'm not talking this needs to be the encyclopedia, but and I was the one for keeping this one on here. You were a little bit iffy on it, but I think, if someone, like you said, if there's no language barrier, if someone is not taking the time to put a post together, for me personally, this tells me a little bit about the person, right? Like, is this someone I want to do business with? If they don't care enough to spend 15 seconds to clean up, the language of their post, how much time have they spent, maintaining their vehicle?
That's a good point. I think that with Craigslist starting to charge now, people are thinking through their ads. I don't know if you ever listed with like nickel ads back in the day, right? So like you have your little square that you can advertise in, and there's a number of characters.
You talking about on the newspaper?
Oh yes, a newspaper classified or in the little yellow nickel ads, where you had to pay by the character, and you only had so many characters you can use. So everyone had little acronyms or just all these things, and so. Just kind of squeezing as much in there as possible. With the $5 ads, it makes you kind of think through, okay, how am I going to word this? Am I going to do, like you said, I don't really care. I'm just going to throw some words out there, and whoever's got to buy it has got to buy it, and they got to talk to me, so that's their problem. I don't really want to work with someone like that. I don't want to work with someone like that because I don't think that they're going to respond timely. They're not going to be... they're not going to show up when we meet. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just got some problems with those kinds of people.
And that's just from our personal experience too.
Yeah, no
blanket judgments there.
Let me tell you, showing up after driving an hour and a half to go visit a vehicle and meeting at like a Safeway, and like a half hour later, I'm on the guy's third excuse where he's like, "Oh, well now this happened, dude. For the love of God." Okay, I don't care. Just show up at Safeway so I can go buy this vehicle. Okay.
Yeah. So just be wary. Just be wary of the quality of the posting may or may not reflect the quality of the person or their reliability. All right. So number 5, and actually, it's good that you mentioned that. Actually, the Craigslist actually does now charge. Was it $5? You said.
It's $5 right now.
So for years and years, like 10, 15 plus years, Craigslist did all their classifieds, at least, for in the car category for free. Recently, I think beginning of this year, something like that.
It depends on your location, basically.
Recently, Craigslist started to charge for those. And so we talked a little bit about the scams earlier. People may be trying to get, them to send you money for a good price vehicle. It'll be interesting to see if Craigslist actually becomes a less risk adverse place for scams because they're now charging per post. So something to note.
It's like the gated community with the high HOAs. Gotta keep all the riffraff out so this exclusive club of Craigslist can have our buying and sellings going on.
Number 5, don't avoid a listing just because there's no phone number to call or text. And I know a lot of blogs out there or other videos say that you should avoid those. Like, if there's no phone number, then it should be, or it's risky. They're trying to hide something. But honestly, some people are just privacy conscious. And I think when people are shopping on Craigslist for vehicles, a lot of people, when they see something they like, they want to instantly talk to someone, right? And if they can't, if they have to send it to the Craigslist email, then they think that, it's not worth their time or they're never going to get a hold of him. But a lot of people, I think, are thinking that way. And so those, I think, are the less reached out to listings because they don't have that phone number.
So yeah, from a seller's perspective, sometimes you just don't want to be bugged all the time by people reaching out, feeling like they can get you whatever you want. You're working, you got other stuff going on. Just email me. I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can, but I'm going to kind of control the flow of conversation.
Yeah, I understand that from a seller's perspective too. You list a car for $7,000 and 8 times a day you get someone that texts you and says, "Will you take $4,000?"
Well, and
classic lowballer.
Classic lowballer. And then ask you a million questions and say, "You know what? Fine, I just want to get rid of it." Oh, well, what are you selling? Oh God, I don't want to deal with that. Just email me. Based on your email, I'm going to judge if you're a real person. If you are, you're getting a call right back, and we're going to do some business. I'm not going to deal with someone calling me or texting me. That's not serious.
Yeah, that's a good point too. That if you do take the time to send the email when you can't just send a text, that does show that you are a serious buyer, right, in the eyes of the seller.
Reference what the vehicle is. Reference your phone number, and make some kind of comment that you actually read the post. That's going to put you at the front of the list. Don't say, "Is it for sale?" You're just using "it" or something else that doesn't define what you're looking at is exactly how you get to the bottom of the list. And number 3, write, coherently. Just make it seem like you're a very interested buyer, someone that this seller wants to work with, and the seller doesn't want a headache. They get a whole bunch of crap in their email box or their text box or whatever else. They just want someone that is real, that is, just like whenever you meet somebody, you just want somebody that's a real human, that's reasonable, and just wants to do a car deal.
That's our 5 tips for things to avoid when buying used cars on Craigslist. If you guys like the video, please like it, subscribe to it. We're brand new and we're just kind of shooting in the dark right now, so would love some feedback. And who wants to be that number 10 subscriber? You will win a
shout out,
a large
shout out on the next one.
A shout out. All right.
Thank you, Skanky Hose 456.
It's a great ending there.
All right. Now, you bring that remote right on over here.
So this is Tyler's dog, Max.
Fuck it. Leave it. No, just joking.
This is what happens when you don't have money for a producer or editors or subscribe.
I said hire
please.
Jake. Oh, there's my truck. It's making fun of the other guy.
Started a slideshow, didn't it?
Yeah, there's a pause section somewhere.